guys, Wintermeat here, and welcome to this video. I'm going to be talking about creating graphical user interface elements with pixel art, specifically bars, buttons, and icons, although there are definitely plenty more that can be made. So, before we get started, I want to talk about the sponsor for this video, BenQ. So recently a company representative asked me to review their Screenbar Plus e-reading lamp, and I thought it was pretty cool and an interesting opportunity. So here's what it looks like. The packaging is really nice, and it's only got 3 components, so the setup is really fast. All there is this desktop dial component that controls everything, a separate light component, and a counterweight to hold onto it. There's not too many wires, it's only one, and it's fairly simple to set up. The light attaches to the counterweight and it's nice to clip. It makes a very satisfying sound. And all you have to do is attach the micro USB plug into the light in order to power it and connect the other end to a USB port on your computer. So since this is a monitor mounted light with a very slim profile, it prevents a lot of pretty cool advantages. It lights up a large portion of the table very uniformly and provides a pretty soft light that's completely adjustable. You can change both the temperature and intensity of the light, so you can make it cool and warm, and you can also make it a bit dimmer. And there's even an auto dimming function with there's a photoreceptor sort of device on the desktop dial component, which allows you to automatically sense the light and adjust the lighting based on your current conditions, which I think is a pretty cool feature. So to be honest, I've only ever used cheap plastic lights before, and the Screenbar Plus feels like a pretty big upgrade to my workspace. So since it's monitor mounted, it doesn't really take up any space on my desk, except for the tiny dial, which I think is really convenient, and it actually looks quite nice also. It doesn't create any screen glare at all, which I'm glad for, because otherwise it would make it a bit hard to see, but it's designed in such a way as to not produce any screen glare. It illuminates the desktop very uniformly, so I think it also reduces some eye strain from working later at night, which might be helpful to some of you. I haven't really been using this light for a particularly long amount of time, but I can tell you that the build quality feels fantastic. It's very light and very smooth. Everything feels really professionally machined, and it doesn't feel or look cheap. I think it's really far superior to a normal desk lamp. It's kind of in a different class of lighting because of the way it softly illuminates whatever you're writing on, and I found it very helpful while working in the dark on things like taking down video notes or frantically debugging an app that's exploding. And I find it very helpful to have something that can just illuminate my workspace very naturally and evenly. Now, my only contention with this is that it's a little bit on the pricey side. If you don't have 129 American dollars or about 180 Canadian dollars to spare, this might not be for the lamp for you, and you might want to find a cheaper alternative. But overall, I think this makes for a great addition to a minimalist workspace and creates a really nice and pleasant work environment. Alright, so this is going to be more of a time-lapse style video, and I'm not going to be talking through all of it because it's going to be pretty long. I just want to discuss a couple of the interesting things I've added and a couple of things I realized that might be useful to you if you are planning on making some pixel art UI on your own. So I suggest first maybe looking up some of the elements you might want to include, because there are quite a few possibilities for pixel art UI elements. You can have radio buttons, toggles, switches, pop-up modals, drop-down menus, sliders, lots of things. I'm just going with a couple of simple health bars, something like an energy bar, and a couple of icons and buttons, because I thought those might be particularly useful for my game, and those are the base UI elements I need right now. So I'm building a deck building roguelite. If you haven't seen that already, there's a channel linked in the description and on your right. And this is some of the art I'm making for it at the moment. and I recorded it because I thought it might be helpful to some of you. And in general, I thought it might just be an interesting process to observe. So yeah, I'm just trying to be consistent with some of my icon designs here. I don't want anything to be too sharp in the corners, and I want to try to keep things looking fairly consistent with an art style. I have solid outlines and drop shadows, just because I think that helps to differentiate the position of the icons and the elements from the background, and make it clear that they're not actually part of the game, but rather superimposed on top of it. I had a hard time making a couple of these icons, including the shield at the beginning, so I found it very helpful to look at some reference. Sometimes you just have to redraw the whole icon, and really these things are fairly small, so they don't take too long to do. I also think starting with a big canvas is a good idea. I like having everything laid out so I don't have to switch between frames or layers in order to see the different art styles, and to make sure that everything is sort of looking consistent. I don't really need grid lines because I have this background grid provided by Sprite, which is the software I'm doing this in. I learned recently that Sprite supports custom themes, so I have this dark one, which I think looks pretty cool. And if you don't have Sprite already, it's only about $15 Canadian or about 10 American, so it's not too expensive, and it's, I think, one of the best pixel art softwares out there. Now, for my shading style, I'm trying to create a sort of not cross-hatching, but just normal hatching shading style, where my shading is not sort of like pillow shading, but rather it's in a single direction. So I have vertical lines to depict shading rather than something like dithering. I just think that looks better. I'm also trying to keep my outlines less boring by making them not completely black, but rather sort of tinted purple. And I like keeping that sort of consistent also. I can separate these health bars and give them a sort of a nice look because I want them to be 3D. So I can give them shading as if you're looking at them from a alternate perspective, like from the top down, and at an angle. I also like giving everything else a small amount of shading, not too much, just because I think the color variation looks nice on the health bars. I also have two health bars because I'm using a system of fast and slow health bars where if you're hit, your fast health bar will drop immediately and a slow health bar will drop to catch up with that, and I have a pretty comprehensive guide on making that effect in Unity, using a very simple script and only a couple of UI elements, which you can check out on the upper right. And yeah, so there's not too much more I have to add to that. I just thought that making these UI elements might have been an interesting process to see, and I hope you can take away something useful from this. So I'm going to stop talking now, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this video. Please subscribe and check out the comments for a link to the sponsored product, BenQ's Screenbar Plus, as well as some of the other videos I've mentioned, including the devlog and a tutorial on health bars in Unity. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!